The town of Greenwood was like any other on the surface, with its quaint houses, friendly neighbors, and endless stretches of green. However, as the Thompson family discovered, beneath the surface lay a dark history, one that had long been buried in whispers and shadows. It was late September when the Thompsons packed their belongings into a rickety moving truck, excited to start anew. James, the father, was a recent transfer to the local university, while Claire, the mother, was eager to settle into a cozy home where their children could thrive. 12-year-old Emma and her younger brother, Oliver, were less enthusiastic about leaving their friends behind, but were curious about the adventure ahead. As they drove into Greenwood, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows over the town. The family's new home, a charming Victorian house, stood at the end of a quiet street, its paint slightly chipped and garden overgrown. Yet, it still held a certain allure, and the Thompsons were excited to make it their own. "Look, there's the old hospital," Oliver exclaimed, pointing out the window. The crumbling edifice loomed at the edge of the town, shrouded in mystery. Its windows were dark, and vines crept up its walls like skeletal fingers. "Let's not go near that place," Claire said, her voice tinged with apprehension. "It's probably unsafe." But Emma was intrigued. "What's the story behind it?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Just an old hospital that closed down years ago," James replied, trying to brush off their fears. "Nothing to worry about." As they settled into their new home, the Thompsons quickly became accustomed to the town's rhythm. Neighbors welcomed them with pies and warm smiles, sharing tales of Greenwood's history. Yet, whenever the old hospital was mentioned, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations turned hushed, and eyes darted away, as if the building itself were a ghost lurking in the shadows. One evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, Emma couldn't hold back her curiosity any longer. "Mom, Dad, can we explore the hospital tomorrow? I want to see what's inside." James hesitated, exchanging a glance with Claire. "It's not safe, Emma. It's been abandoned for years." "But what if it's just full of old furniture and junk?" Emma insisted. "It could be an adventure." Finally, Claire relented. "Fine, but just for a little while. We'll go in the morning when it's light out." The next day, the Thompsons set out for the hospital, their hearts pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The building loomed larger as they approached, the air growing heavy with an inexplicable sense of dread. The entrance was partially obscured by overgrown weeds, and the door hung ajar, creaking softly in the wind. As they stepped inside, the smell of mildew and decay enveloped them. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light that filtered through the grimy windows. The family hesitated, taking in the remnants of what once was. A faded waiting room with cracked linoleum, rusted gurneys left to languish in the corners, and peeling paint that seemed to whisper secrets of the past. "Let's split up," Emma suggested, her adventurous spirit igniting. "We can meet back here in half an hour." "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Claire asked, worry etching her features. "Come on, Mom," Emma urged. "It'll be fine." Reluctantly, Claire agreed, and the family scattered through the hospital. Emma and Oliver ventured deeper into the building, while James and Claire explored the lower floors. As Emma and Oliver navigated the narrow corridors, the silence was deafening. Shadows flickered at the edges of their vision, making Emma's heart race. She tried to dismiss it, attributing it to her imagination, but the unease lingered. "Do you think anyone else comes here?" Oliver asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma shrugged. "Probably not. It's too creepy." Suddenly, they heard a faint sound, a low moan echoing through the halls. Both children froze, exchanging terrified glances. "What was that?" Oliver whispered, his eyes wide. "Let's go find out," Emma said, trying to muster her courage. They followed the sound, which grew louder, more distinct, guiding them to a long hallway lined with patient rooms. The moaning seemed to emanate from the last room on the left. As they approached, Emma's heart raced. "Do you think it's a ghost?" she asked, half joking, half serious. Oliver swallowed hard. "I don't want to find out." But Emma was drawn to the door, With trembling hands, she pushed it open, revealing a darkened room filled with shadows. The sight before them was haunting. A dusty bed, covered in a tattered sheet, and medical equipment draped in cobwebs. "Hello," Emma called, her voice shaky. The moaning stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence. Suddenly, a chill swept through the room, and a figure flickered into view. A translucent woman in a white hospital gown, her eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. Emma gasped, stumbling backward into Oliver, who had turned pale. "We need to get out of here," he shouted, panic rising in his voice. The ghostly figure raised a hand, and they felt an overwhelming wave of sorrow wash over them. Emma stumbled back, pulling Oliver with her. They ran down the hallway, fear propelling them forward, not daring to look back. Meanwhile, James and Claire had also encountered their own unsettling experience. As they explored the lower floors, they stumbled upon an old records room filled with dusty files and yellowed papers. Claire picked up a folder, her brow furrowing as she read the name on the front. Margaret Wilkins, a patient who had died tragically in the hospital years ago. "What happened to her?" James asked, leaning over her shoulder. "She was a victim of a botched surgery," Claire replied, her voice trembling. "The doctors were underqualified, and she suffered for days before finally succumbing to her injuries." A cold breeze swept through the room, and the lights flickered ominously. James glanced around, unease creeping in. "Let's get back to the kids," he said, sensing the atmosphere shifting. As they hurried back through the hallways, they heard the echoing cries of Emma and Oliver, growing louder with each step. They rushed toward the sound, finding their children collapsed against the wall, pale and trembling. "What happened?" Claire asked, kneeling beside them. Emma's eyes were wide with terror. "A ghost. We saw a ghost." "Calm down, it's okay," James soothed, wrapping his arms around his family. "Let's get out of here." As they made their way back towards the entrance, the air grew heavier, the shadows dancing menacingly around them. The moaning returned, echoing off the walls. The family quickened their pace, heartbeats racing. Suddenly, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The Thompsons froze, panic coursing through them. "We're trapped," Oliver cried, his voice shaky. Emma turned to the darkened hall behind them, her curiosity now mixing with dread. "What do we do?" James gripped the doorknob, pulling with all his strength, but it wouldn't budge. The moans grew louder, swirling around them like a malevolent wind. "Margaret!" A voice suddenly cried out, echoing through the hall. "Help me!" Claire's heart raced as she clutched her children tightly. "We need to find another way out," she shouted. They turned back into the hospital, desperately searching for an exit. The walls seemed to close in around them, and the shadows twisted into grotesque shapes. As they stumbled through the corridors, they could feel the cold presence of the ghostly patients pressing in on them. Finally, they spotted a window at the end of a narrow hallway. "Over there!" Emma yelled, pointing. They rushed toward it, but the moaning grew louder, the air thick with despair. Just as they reached the window, the ghostly figure of Margaret appeared before them, her face twisted in anguish. "Help me!" she wailed, her voice echoing with sorrow. "Let us go!" Claire screamed, trying to push past her, but Margaret's hollow eyes locked onto Emma's. "You must know the truth," she cried. "They wronged me. They wronged us all." Emma felt a surge of empathy for the ghost, but fear gnawed at her. "We don't want to help you," she shouted, tears streaming down her cheeks. In that moment, the air grew colder, and the shadows coalesced into ghostly figures, all reaching out with desperate hands. "Help us!" they echoed, their voices merging into a cacophony of sorrow. James and Claire pulled their children closer, their hearts pounding as they fought against the overwhelming despair. "We have to break through," he urged. With a burst of adrenaline, they threw their weight against the window, shattering the glass. The shards fell around them like rain as they clambered through the opening, escaping the haunted grasp of the hospital. They tumbled onto the grass outside, gasping for breath. The moaning faded behind them, replaced by the chirping of crickets and the distant sounds of the town. They lay on the ground, shaken but free. As they caught their breath, Emma looked back at the hospital, the building standing ominously against the night sky. "They just wanted to be heard," she whispered. "Let's go home," Claire said, pulling her children close. The Thompsons turned away from the haunted hospital, leaving its dark secrets behind, but knowing they would never forget the whispers of the abandoned ward. As they drove away, the specters of Greenwoods past watched from the shadows, waiting for the next family brave enough to uncover their tragic tale.